On the next Canine Corner, we'll be talking about pet disaster safety with Denise Fleck, the Pet Safety Crusader. We'll learn some pet first aid tips and get a demonstration of pet CPR. Plus, we'll tell you how you can give this little guy a forever home. All this coming up on the next Canine Corner. There, I'm Riannon Trutanich, your host for Canine Corner, the show that your dog will give 2 paws up. Today's show is all about being a prepared pet owner. Denise Fleck, the Pet Safety Crusader, will be here to talk to us about her new book about pet disaster safety. Plus, Denise will give us some tips about pet first aid and demonstrate pet CPR. But first, let's meet 2 adorable rescue dogs from Forte Animal Rescue.
Forte Rescue has been around for over 10 years. It was founded by Maria Take. It's based out of Marina del Rey. Every Saturday at Centinela Feed, we have adoptions from 12:30 to 3:30, and it's a great time to come out and meet the dogs that are looking for their forever homes. The dogs that we save are dogs that are pulled from shelters that are at risk of being euthanized. So when you adopt a dog from Forte, not only are you saving a dog, but you're also emptying up a space at the shelter so that another dog can be saved. This little guy is Josh. He is just a huggable little bundle of energy. We think he's probably about 4 years old. He's so happy. He always has a smile on his face. When he greets you, he gives you the full body hug. All 4 paws just wraps around you. He is full of love. But what he's looking for is he's looking for someone to share his heart with. He needs a forever home. He loves other dogs, but I think he could also be okay as an only dog. Every person that I've seen him with really enjoys him, and he also enjoys their company. The one thing, though, that I would say is they would need to be careful feeding him, because I think in his past he might not have had enough food to eat, and sometimes he gets a little nervous that he might not be eating again. So he just needs somebody that's going to be a little patient with him. And once he realizes that he's going to be having food, I think he'll be just fine. And he's not really a barker. At the adoption events, I haven't seen him make a lot of noise. He's a great sized dog. It's almost like he's a medium sized dog. So if you're looking for just a little bit bigger, but not too big, he is the perfect size dog.
And he would make an amazing companion.
Oh, absolutely.
The 10 minutes we've been here, he would be the best companion, huh?
And his tail wags the whole time. He's just so happy to be out. This is Skip. He is a terrier mix. Now, Skip is a fun bundle of energy. He would love to be someone's running partner. He loves other dogs. He was found on the streets of LA. A Good Samaritan found him and brought him to Forte. I'm not sure exactly what his backstory is, but sometimes when he first meets men, he is a little bit scared of them. So someone that's gonna, be patient with him. He loves to be held, though. He is a big cuddle bug.
If you are interested in adopting these dogs, please contact Forte Animal Rescue at farescue.org. Those dogs are so adorable and would love to be part of your family. Denise Fleck is here to talk to us now about her new book about pet disaster safety. Denise Fleck's new book, The Pet Safety Crusader's My Pet and Me Guide to Pet Disaster Paw Preparedness, is a must-read for pet parents.
The first 3 things I talk about are your 3 most important tools, which are readiness, a positive mental attitude, and curiosity. So let me start with those. Readiness has to do with training and having supplies on hand so that you are ready to either evacuate or hunker down with your family members, whether they walk on 2 legs or 4 paws or hoofed feathers or swim or fly. The positive mental attitude is one of those things you just can't teach anybody. It has to come from within. It's all about confidence, because you can have all the skills in the world, but if you aren't confident to react and use them, it's not going to do any good. And I really think the best way we can each work on our positive mental attitude is to be ready. So if we do get training, don't ever give up an opportunity to learn something. You never know when it's going to come in handy.
The book teaches pet parents what they need to do in order to be prepared even in the most difficult situations.
The way I've written the book is the beginning part is about the ready, the react, and the recover, kind of on a general, broad strokes, everything that, everybody should have. But then the next 10 chapters or so go into earthquakes and tornadoes and blizzards, even civil unrest, tsunamis, mudslides, the whole bit. So I did break it down that way so that wherever you live, whatever part of the country, whatever you might expect or don't even know you might expect, there are specific things you should have on hand or do ahead of time.
Denise walks readers through the steps to help them be prepared.
And then I take you into the 3 real tenets of the book. And they are ready, get ready, have all of your supplies on hand, check them regularly to make sure everything's there, that it hasn't expired, and exactly what those things are. Ready also includes your emergency plan.
And if you're not sure how to develop an emergency plan, Denise can help you with that.
So I make actually a preparedness checklist for the pets, but I also have one in the book of things we should have for humans, because it's like when you get on a plane, they tell you if something happens and the air masks drop, you have to put one on yourself before you help anybody else. Yes. Same thing with our pets. If we're not prepared for us, we can't take care of them. So we do need to think about the human peoples as well. But there's a list of all the things you should have for your pets. You see, this one is for my youngest son, Haiku, and you can check them off as you get them in your disaster supplies, and also write down all of your important phone numbers, and believe it or not, phone and directions to your house. Why would you need them to your house? In an emergency, brain cells fly out our ears, and it's a good idea to just have things written in front of you and succinctly so you can tell somebody. Also, part of this kit should have your pet's vaccination and medical records in case you have to evacuate to a shelter. You have proof that he's up to date on things, and pictures of your pet and pictures of your pet with you. Get your pet from different angles. My boy here generally has his left ear down, so I want to show that. If I have a pet with special markings, photograph them from the different sides, because the colors, patterns, markings are kind of like a fingerprint. And then don't forget to have pictures of your pet with you and each of your family members, because it proves you belong together. So if you're picking up the pet from the shelter, that's proof.
And the most important thing is to evacuate with your pet if you are able to.
I'm going to say over and over that if you need to evacuate, take your pets with you. But there's going to always be that case where we're away or we're at the office and we're not allowed back up to our pet. There could be a fire, there could be so much damage from an earthquake or whatever happened that it's not safe for us to go. But if there's a pet alert sticker on your door or window, once it's deemed safe for animal control and humane officers, any type of first responders that can help animals, they'll know that there's an animal inside. If, however, you have a pet alert sticker on your window and you evacuate with your pets, which I hope you will, cross it off or rip it off the window before you leave, just so people aren't needlessly looking for your pet.
And when you evacuate with your pet, it's important to remember all of the supplies your pet will need.
Make sure you just have all the supplies for your pets, their food, their medication, water. Cats, you should have a quart of water a day. A small dog, about a half a gallon, and a person and a larger dog, about 3/4 to a gallon of water per day is what they need. Have their extra leashes, their bedding, toys, something to occupy them and distract them during an emergency. And, just, of course, your pet first aid kit, because the worst can happen, and you need, like a plumber or a carpenter, you need to have the right tool to help your pet when he needs you most.
And in addition to all of the supplies you will need for your pet, Denise says it's important to know how to administer first aid to your furry friend.
I conclude the book with a whole first aid section, and I do say it's a basic first aid because I really want you to know all of the first aid you possibly can for the species that you cohabitate with, including humans. But I've given a pretty good overview for, let me think, amphibians, cats, dogs, humans, fish, birds, reptiles, and large animals. So, it's a great resource to go to jog your memory or remind you of the steps. but obviously really get trained for the the specific species you live with. Well, something else I'm going to really encourage you to do is to write down your emergency plan. And people think, oh, well, I've thought it through in my head. I don't really need to put pen to paper. Well, you'd be amazed sometimes too when you start writing that the second and the third and the fourth drafts, new things come to mind. So really write down your emergency plan. In my preparedness kits that I have on my website, I do have a template for you and also for your pets. But I also encourage you to practice a drill several times a year. And you think, oh, we're all adults, we know how to get out of the house. Well, you may have children and they need to practice, and you also need to practice with your pets because we can't sit down. You can't sit down with Popeye, and I know Popeye understands everything and is really the one in charge, but you can't tell him, okay, there's a fire, so when that happens, you're gonna have to, go get your leash, we're gonna harness you up, and you're gonna march out this door. You need to actually show them. So you need to practice these drills with the pet and make sure that anybody that's of an age that would ever be home alone with the pets knows how to handle all of the pets.
And even though we can't predict who will be there when something happens or when something will happen, Denise's book can help you be prepared. Denise's new book is available on Amazon as well as her website, PetSafetyCrusader.com. You can purchase her pet first aid kit and paw preparedness kit on her website as well. Such a great book, definitely a must-have for pet parents. Denise will be back later in the show to give us some pet first aid tips. You won't want to miss it. We're going to take a short break, but don't go anywhere. There's much more doggone fun when we come back.
With you by my side, we are stronger. With you by my side, we are safer. With you by my side, my friend, we can do anything. With you by my side, I am never alone. For those who can't see and those who have seen too much.
Welcome back to Canine Corner. I'm your host, Riannon Trutanich. Knowing basic pet first aid is important. Hopefully we never have to use it, but as prepared pet owners, we should know what to do in case something happens. Denise Fleck is back with us now to talk about pet first aid techniques.
Well, sometimes things happen with pets in our lives and we have to be prepared, so we should have a toolkit for our pet's first aid kit, and we need to know the knowledge of what to do. But obviously when something happens, and we've talked about this many times before, we need to stay calm because we emit emotions and our pets feed off of that. So the calmer we stay, hopefully the calmer Fido or Fluffy will too. The first thing you want to do when something happens when your pet is injured is get him to a safe place where you can really perform first aid. If you're in the house, it might be a good idea to shoo him into a bathroom and close the door, because then, especially with smaller pets, if they go in the bedroom, they're going to go under the bed or under a sofa. In the bathroom, you have control of the situation and you generally have all your first aid equipment. But if you're out walking the dog and you have him on a leash, step on the leash or tie it to a fence post, because you can't do first aid if you're trying to hold on to the pet. There are a few little tricks, because sometimes a collar will come off, or you'll find a pet maybe without a collar. If you have one of these leashes in your kits that has either an O or a D ring, you slip the handle into the O or the D ring, and now you have both a collar and a leash and a way to hold on to any pet, even a kitty cat. But if this loosens up, they could slip out of it, or if they're one that pulls, they could choke themselves. So I like to turn this into what I call a figure 8 harness. You've got one circle around the neck. Now you make the second circle by coming around the chest and putting that handle back through the O-ring. And now all of the pressure is here at the shoulder blades, and you're not going to lose that pet.
Wow.
And you can secure him to a fence or whatever you need to, and now carefully do first aid, because you certainly don't want to choke him while you're checking a paw.
No.
So that's a good step.
That's amazing.
Something else we have to think about as first aid responders is the animal we're trying to help might bite us. We don't want to think of precious, our pet biting us, but it's kind of like a disembodied hand coming at them when they're already in pain. So we may have to put a muzzle on our pets. And all of these things, even the bandaging techniques I'm going to show you, you absolutely should practice with your pet before he needs it, because it just desensitizes him. He lets him know what goes off is going to come on. or I should think I said that backwards, what goes on is going to come off, and then it's not such a big deal for the pet. So you never want to use the muzzle as a punishment either, because you want them to get used to it and know that it's an okay thing for mom or dad to put it on and that it's going to come off. So just a piece of fabric you start with and make a loop first.
Okay.
And then you come from behind the animal. You probably wouldn't be sitting down, but you would be standing over him or even straddling a large dog and lasso the snout and pull tight. You then cross under the chin. That's what's going to completely close the mouth.
Okay.
Come around the ears and the back of the neck and tie off in a bow. Always a bow, never a knot, because you want to make sure that you can get the pet out if he suddenly has breathing difficulties, has to vomit, is having a seizure. So we've got him in a safe place now and we can perform some first aid. So why don't we talk about bleeding injuries?
Okay.
The bleeding injuries for pets are very much like for humans. There are 3 basic steps to stop bleeding: direct pressure, elevation, and pressure points. What I mean by direct pressure is wherever the pet is bleeding, we're going to take a gauze and we're going to apply direct pressure directly over the wound. You have some bandages, so feel free at any point to come along with me here. So we're going to apply that direct pressure if this fellow of mine here has a leg injury. I don't want you lifting it up, looking at it, seeing how it's doing, because every time you do that, you break the clot that's trying to form and you let air and bacteria in there.
Okay.
If that bleeds through, just add more gauze on top. If that bleeds through, just keep adding more gauze on top.
Okay.
If the direct pressure alone isn't getting the bleeding to stop, that's where you're going to use elevation. And in the case of a leg, it would be good to try to get the pet to lie down and use your own body or a folded up towel or a pillow underneath him, just making sure the wound is higher than the heart.
Okay.
It's kind of like if we stand with our arm in the air long enough, our fingers are going to start to tingle. They're still getting a blood flow, but it's minimized. And what this is doing is allowing less blood to get to this injury and therefore less to flow out of the body.
Okay.
So direct pressure and elevation. If we're still having trouble getting the injury to stop bleeding, our last course of action is pressing on a pressure point. Dogs and cats have 5 of them. They're basically major arteries, 1 inside each leg, and the 5th is at the base of the tail. So let me stand him up here and say, what if this poor guy got his tail slammed in the door? We would do direct pressure, we would do elevation, and the caudal runs underneath the tail. What you do is put a thumb on the top and a few fingers underneath and press up towards your thumb, and that's how you get the bleeding to stop.
Wow, I had no idea.
And if it was on the leg like we were just both doing here, you come in here and press basically on the inner upper thigh. It's kind of like on the groin. On the hind leg, that would be called the femoral artery. Or up here in the front leg, that would be like the brachial artery. So once we get the bleeding to stop, we need to get this guy checked out by the veterinarian, get stitches, get antibiotics, whatever's needed. But we need to bandage this in place so it doesn't resume bleeding and so that infection doesn't get in.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take our gauze roll, and let me stand him back up here. You might keep him lying down if he was really an injured patient, but so that all of your viewers can see, we're going to start wrapping the leg. And we're going to go around and round until that flat gauze is securely covered, but so that we can still get a finger in here sideways so that it isn't too tight. Okay. A lot of books talk about making sure the skin doesn't turn blue. Well, that doesn't completely apply to our canine and feline friends. The 2 things you want to watch for is that there is no swelling on either side of the bandage. If it's starting to swell, your bandage is too tight. You need to clip it and start over.
Okay.
The other thing is if the leg is getting cool to the touch below the bandage.
Okay.
That again means the bandage is too tight, it's not getting a good blood flow.
Okay.
So the one tip I like to offer is after you've covered the flat gauze sufficiently, if you're doing a hind leg, now once come around the lower abdomen and back around the leg.
Wow.
If you're doing a front leg, go once around the chest and back around the leg before you tape it in place. But that kind of creates suspenders or a garter belt, whatever you'd like to call it, and helps keep the bandage in place.
Oh.
Another really tricky area are the ears. And my tip for ears are think opposites.
Okay.
Okay? Meaning, if you have a downward ear dog, you're going to flip the ear up. for direct
Okay.
pressure. If you have an upright ear dog or cat, up ears, we're going to press down for direct pressure.
Okay.
So down goes up and up goes down.
Okay.
With our gauze, we're going to place that on whichever side is bleeding. We're going to get our direct pressure going here. We have our elevation going as long as we're keeping, the head higher than the heart. But in this case, there are no pressure points because we don't want to cut off blood to the brain. So we're really confined to this. And as we start to bandage in place, what we're going to do is we're going to use the good ear as an anchor. Meaning one time we're going to come around the back of the good ear, and let me turn him around. And the next time we're going to come around the front of the good ear. If we were just to go around the back of that ear, the bandage would slide down the neck. If we were just going to go around the front of the ear, it would fall down the face. This is one of those things that's going to help keep it in place. And yes, it's an acquired skill. It takes a little bit of practice for human. And it's also good, to let our canine friends know what's going on ahead of time so it isn't something scary. You can now then use adhesive tape out of your first aid kit or some of that flexible stretchy wrap that I like to use. You just want to always make sure whatever you secure it in place with, you don't do it too tight. But I'll have to tell you, for the wiggle ends, what I have found is go to a medical store and get some of those stretchy sleeves or clean out your pantyhose drawer. A thigh works really well and will hopefully, keep that bandage in place until you get to the veterinarian.
So smart. So smart. Oh my goodness, what a great idea. Wow, and I clearly have some practicing to do here.
Well, I think you need to practice on Popeye.
Yes.
Because I'll tell you, these are the best patients you're going to ever have.
If you would like more information about Denise Fleck or to purchase one of her first aid kits, please visit PetSafetyCrusader.com. Take my word for it, bandaging is not as easy as Denise makes it look. She is a pro, and I definitely have some practicing to do. Now, in addition to pet first aid, pet parents should also know how to give their pets CPR. How can giving a pet CPR at the time of the injury help?
Well, sometimes the worst happens. And we have to resuscitate our pet because if we just put him in the car and drive like a mad woman or man to the vet, he may be not breathing and his heart may not beating, too long. Brain cells may have died, and the vet with even all the experience in the world may not be able to resuscitate him. So what we do at the time of the injury can really make a difference.
What is the first thing a pet parent should do if something has happened and their pet may not be breathing?
We're going to want to check his vitals first to see, though, if he really is breathing and, doesn't have a pulse. So we're going to place our hand here on the side of the chest to feel for that rise and fall. If there's no breathing, we next want to pull back on the chin and open the airway. Sometimes that'll allow an animal to start breathing if we're really lucky. But, think about it this way. If he's crunched over, he could be restricting his blood flow. It's like a straw that's bent. You can't suck the good stuff through, but when it's straightened out, it might begin to flow. But if at this point there still is no breathing, what we're going to do is extend the tongue just past the canine teeth. That's beneficial if he's choked on an object that you might move the object forward. Then we're going to do the opposite of what we do in human rescue breathing. For humans, we pinch off the nose and breathe in the mouth. For our pets, we're going to do the opposite because their smile line comes farther around their face. If we breathe in the mouth, it's probably just going to pop out the cheeks. So instead, we're going to concentrate on closing the mouth and giving 2 slow, full breaths directly into the nostrils. When you're down here out of the corner of your eye, you'll be able to see the chest rise a little bit if you've actually ventilated the pet and got air in.
What should a pet parent do after giving the 2 breaths?
After you've given the 2 breaths, now we want to check for a pulse. And we do that at the femoral artery. Think of the big femur bone in the hind leg. Place 2 fingers at the knee and roll them to the inner fleshy thigh, kind of right there in the groin. That's where you feel for the pulse. If there is a pulse, we don't want to start compressions. What we want to do is just concentrate on the breathing and do 10 breaths, check for a pulse. 10 breaths, check for a pulse.
What if the pet does not have a pulse?
At any point there is no pulse, that's when we jump on the CPR portion. We take the upper leg and bend the elbow back just slightly till it touches the chest to give us our target zone. It's like you or I bending our elbow back like this. Okay. Then for a medium to large dog, we'd place the heel of our hand there, generally our more dominant hand on top, and you can leave your fingers out or bend them over, but the key really is to lock your elbows. If you don't lock them, you're using your biceps over and over, and you're going to actually fatigue very quickly. Yeah. So if you lock them, you're kind of just rocking, and we're going to do 30 compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 27, 28, 29, 30, and then 2 breaths. And every 4 rounds, we recheck for a pulse. So I made that a little shorter there for us. Whew. But it really should be at a speed of about 100 compressions per minute.
How many times should a pet parent give CPR before going to the vet?
As you know, pet first aiders, we're usually the ones that find the pet, need to begin the technique. We don't have any medications to inject, and we have to transport. So we are continuing the rescue breathing and the chest compressions. After about 3 sets of that, you want to get in the car on the way to the vet.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Denise. This is great. I mean, it's great information to know and hopefully never use. But
Exactly. I hope you don't have to, but this really is an efficient way to get blood throughout the body and to the brain. That's why it's now called cardiopulmonary cerebral resuscitation, because by doing those 30 compressions without stopping, we have a better chance of keeping those brain cells well nourished too.
for more information about Denise and Pet CPR, please visit PetSafetyCrusader.com. Now, if you missed the adoption segment at the beginning of our show or just want to see the adorable dogs again, here's your recap. Josh is a Tibetan Terrier miniature Schnauzer mix. He's a very sweet dog. He gets along with other dogs and loves to play. He's neutered and house-trained. He would make a great companion. Skip is a Border Terrier mix. He is good with other dogs and kids. He's a little shy at first, but once he gets to know you, he will be your best friend. He would love to be a member of your family. If you are interested in adopting these dogs, please contact Forte Animal Rescue at farescue.org. If you want even more Canine Corner, be sure to like our Facebook page and follow me on Instagram and Twitter. That's all the time we have today. Thanks for joining us here on Canine Corner. I'm Riannon Trutanich, and we'll see you next time.